If you've ever been sidelined by a running injury, you know how frustrating it is. The worst part, most of them are pretty preventable, especially with the right strength and mobility work. Today, I'm going to show you the 9 exercises I know for a fact that you are going to wish you knew before your first running injury. I know I did. In this video, I'm going to talk you through the ones we now recommend to thousands of runners who we train that are over the age of 50. I've got Lindsay here to help me demonstrate each movement so you can see exactly how to do them right. Let's get started. Exercise 1, the glute bridge. All right, the idea here is you want to have your knees bent at a 90-degree angle, feet nice and flat on the floor. Emphasis through this is almost digging your heels down into the ground. Lindsay, you're going to place your hands at your sides, and with the glute bridge, I'm looking for you to lift your hips up into the air, just as you are, but really looking for a full glute activation. So squeezing those glutes as hard as you can, maintaining that position for a second or two, and then relaxing down to the ground. As far as possible, you want to keep that squeeze. So you're going to come up, squeeze the glutes nice and tight, hold it for 2 seconds, and then ease yourself back to the floor without just collapsing every time. Like I say, dig the heels into the ground, try and keep the knees nice and stable, and not use your lower back to get you up every time. So hold for a count of 2, nice and easy, back down to the ground. Next up is our eccentric calf raise. For the eccentric calf raise, you want to be up on a small step or a box, as Lindsay is here. This isn't vital though, so this also can be done just on the floor. The box just allows for a little bit more range of motion around the ankle. So with the eccentric calf raise, Lindsay, you're going to place the ball of your foot on the edge of the box, so your heel's off. Use a wall or something for a little bit of balance. I'm not testing your balance in this exercise. So nice and stable, keeping the body nice and straight as well, hips forward. We're going to come up onto the toes, so high into a calf raise. Try and get as high as you can. Important here is the word eccentric in this movement. So the way down, or the downward movement, needs to take you at least 5 seconds. So it's a slow, controlled movement coming back down. So doing this as 1 rep. So Linz, you're going to drive up nice and high onto the toes for me. Hold it there for a second and then come down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we go again. Drive up nice and high. On your way down, you can get just below the level of the box. 3, 2, 1, nice and controlled. This is really important that you are doing this slowly. Don't try and rush it as you're feeling the exercise in the calves and the burn in the calves. You want to make sure the eccentric motion, that slow controlled motion, is happening throughout the entire range of the set. This is about strength during the lowering phase, because that's usually when most calf and Achilles injuries happen. All right, next up, we are moving into our step up hip flexion. For the step up exercise, we are going to use a box, a small step. Guys, this really does not have to be high at all. Even if it's a couple of hard-covered books stacked on top of each other or a couple of weight plates, doesn't have to be high, just as long as it is a step up. All right, Linz, we're going to step up onto the box. So I'm going to ask you if you step up with your right foot onto the box. As you step up, the left leg or the trailing leg is going to come up into a hip flexion, so a knee drive. Keep the toes flexed up towards the roof. Idea is trying to keep the posture upright here and the hips forward. So step gently back down, drive up onto the box, nice hard step, high knee drive, and ease yourself back down. This is a great exercise because it not only mimics the running style, you can see Lindsay's actually incorporating some arm swings into this, but also for leg power and coordination, as well as stability. Good. All right. Just again, try and get that knee up nice and high, toes up, helps just keep the posture upright, back nice and tight. So 1 or 2 more reps for me. If you just step up nice and strong, back upright, good stuff. All right, next up, keeping with the hip flexion, we are doing a standing hip flexion. For the standing hip flexion, the idea here is we really are, as the name says, targeting the hip flexor region. So using a wall for a little bit of balance, I want quite an aggressive lean against the wall. Maybe not quite that much. Let's get your feet a bit closer. From here, focus again on keeping the hips engaged and forward. Look up ahead of you, body nice and flat, and we are going to drive the knee up, toes up against or up towards the roof, and control back down. This one can alternate sides, so we'll now move onto the other side. Nice high knee movement and control back down. This is something that if you find, we're doing body weight work here and it might seem quite simple. If you get to a point that this doesn't really do much and you feel that it's too easy, you can take a small resistance band, tie it around your feet, and then work against the resistance of the resistance band into that hip flexion. As you can see, Linz, what he's doing here really well is the metronomic motion that he's working in. It's not a sharp, jolting, kicking action. Really important here is he's keeping his body nice and flat. Linz, if you can just do a bad example, is you don't want to drop your hips to the wall every time you see one, he's pushing his bum out, or very often you try and kick up so high that you've got this negative arch in the lower back. So keeping the body nice and flat, high knee drive up towards the chest, and control that movement back down. The next exercise is our reverse lunge. With a reverse lunge, it's really important that we keep our body posture in an upright position. So shoulders back, chest out, and it needs to be almost sort of this backward and downward movement instead of keeping all your weight over the front leg. The idea of a reverse lunge, it's very good to keep that forward pressure off the knees. So, Linz, I'm going to ask you left leg, we're going to step backwards. So almost throw a little bit of weight into the back leg. You're going to come down, so I'm going to break this up into stages. So come down, back knee down towards the floor, not touching the floor. You can see Linz has got both his knees in a 90-degree angle, body upright, and standing back up onto that front leg, feet together. So now to move that into a more fluid movement, step back, down, and drive back up into that forward motion, onto that front leg. The reverse lunge is really good for hip and quad control as well. I'm going to show you just a regression. So if you struggle with knee pain or you might struggle with the balance of that backward step, you can do this as a static lunge. So starting off with a stride back. So this is the position we're going to start in. All Lindsay's going to do for me is go down into a lunge and come straight back up, still keeping the staggered stance. You can straighten that front leg for me. Again, down, body nice and straight, and driving straight back up. This takes a lot of that strain off the knees, and especially if you have got a little bit of a nagging pain, it'll just be a lot more simple to start with this as a regression and then start working once you feel that you are getting more comfortable and stronger into that reverse lunge. If you're starting to see how important this stuff is, but you're not sure where to start and how to build it into your weekly plan, scan the QR code on screen now and save your seat to our free masterclass for runners over 50. We'll walk you through the full system we use to train smarter, avoid injury, and keep progressing into your 50s, 60s, and beyond. All right, exercise number 6, dead bugs. Linz, on your back, I'm going to ask you, bend your knees up, feet in the air for me. So bring the legs up, knees bent at 90 degrees. Try and keep your toes flexed back towards your head at all times. It just helps keep the feet elevated and not drop towards your bum. Arms up, so hands pointing towards the roof. The goal here, and where I talk about coordination, is I'm looking for an opposite arm, opposite leg. So a right hand, left leg, extend behind you, and then come back to the top, to the starting position, before the opposite side goes, and come back up. Try and focus on keeping one hand and one knee always pointing up towards the roof or the sky throughout the entire range of motion. So right arm, left leg, full extension, make yourself as tall as you can, back to the top, and alternate sides. This is really good for not only core stability, but there's a lot of hip flexion work and hip mobility going into this, as well as shoulder mobility, which as runners we very often neglect. Not only that, we really are focusing on a fair amount of coordination here. You can see every now and again when Lindsay starts getting fatigued, things start going slightly out of track. Next up is our single leg glute bridge. So this is a great exercise for single leg strength and stability work, but also really good for trunk stability. So Linz, with this, hands at your sides, very much like the original glute bridge that we've already done. Knees are bent, so you can have your feet slightly further away from you at 90 degrees. But this time, one leg, I'm going to ask you to straighten your right leg for me. So nice and straight into the air. Goal is to keep your knees together throughout the entire movement. All right, so knees together. And now we're going to drive up into that glute bridge. Same thing, pressure through the heel into the ground. Hold it for 2 seconds and gently back down to the floor. Keep doing all the reps on one side. Real big emphasis here is to make sure that with that stability, we want to avoid our hips rolling side to side. So keeping the legs nice and controlled, drive up hard, squeeze, hold for 2 seconds, and come back down. One thing I want you to try and avoid with this as well, I'm going to ask you, you can do the other side if you'd like, is as you come up, very often people lose the coordination and this top leg elevates high up into the ground, into the air. I want you to really focus on keeping the knees together. You can even put a small mini band around the knees if you'd like, but we're going to drive up, keep nice and stable, feel yourself not rocking or falling side to side, and come back down. As I said, do all the reps on one side before moving across to the other. All right, exercise number 8 is going to be our band clamshells. From an alignment point of view, you're lying on your side. You can have, as Lindsay's got his head up on his hand, or you can lie nice and flat, whichever's more comfortable for you. But really look to focus on alignment. I want you to have your shoulders, hips, and ankles in a straight line. So your knees are bent at 90 degrees and your knees are slightly out in front of you. With a clamshell, feet stay together and we are going to open our knees. So drive up. Again, work within your limits, so as high as you can, and gently down. Don't let that band just slap your legs back together. We're going to open up again, keeping the feet together, and coming back down. You'll see for stability, Lindsay's got his top hand on the floor, which I'm okay with. It helps just keep the body from rolling. But important here is imagine I've put a pole through Lindsay's top hip and bottom hip. I want you to try and keep these hips nice and still throughout the movement. A common error is as you open, the hips roll and the whole body rolls back to try and gain more leverage. We want to avoid that because then we're using our trunk to open up our hips and get this movement going rather than the glutes, which we're actually trying to target here. So hips are nice and stable, open those legs up or the knees up, and then gently coming back down, finishing all the reps again before rolling on to the other side. This exercise is really good for glute activation and so lateral sort of structures of the leg as well as the ITB. You might feel this if you are struggling with any sort of ITB or knee pain, then start this without a resistance band just so that there's less resistance and tension happening for the lateral structures. And then as you start getting a little bit stronger with this, then move into a resistance band and potentially even a tighter or stiffer resistance band. All right, next up, we are going to do our wall sits. With the wall sit, you're obviously going to need a space up against the wall. Linz, I'm going to ask you, you're going to lean against the wall. You're going to have your feet slightly further away from the wall, okay? And then from here, we're going to go down into sort of a static squatting position. So slide down the wall, feet slightly further away. You're going to go down. Ideally, I'd like you to try and have your quads or your upper legs nice and horizontal or parallel to the floor. This would be a great position. Body upright, looking straight in front of you, and try and focus on keeping that lower back flat against the wall. So you almost want to push back into the wall. Keep the feet shoulder width apart. Already Lindsay will be shaking a little bit and feeling those quads burning. Trying to keep nice and stable with his feet or his ankles directly below his knees. You really want to avoid being too far away. Otherwise, you kind of feel like you're pushing away and slipping the whole time. So 90 degrees on those knees, pushing weight back into the wall, and you're going to sit and hold this position for 30 to 60 seconds. It is dependent on you. If you struggle with a little bit of knee pain or potentially just holding that position, you can also still work within your limits. So don't go quite as deep into the sit. So we'll go down, and if You'll see in this case, as Linz goes down, if he finds that's where his position is, that's all right. You can even come up slightly if you need to hold a little bit less tension on the quads. So still working within where your limitations are. Just make sure you're not putting undue strain on the knees and trying to push through any pain or discomfort through this exercise. These 9 exercises are simple, but they're exactly what keeps runners like you injury-free and progressing. We're not talking about bodybuilding, we're talking about building a body that can actually hold up to running, and these are the foundations.
If I'd known all of this before I got injured, it would have saved me months of frustration. Stick with these, but whatever you do, don't leave without watching the next video. It shows you how to run faster while keeping your heart rate low, and it changed how I train completely. Click to watch that now.